there's research dating back into the 50s that when you say present things as an us versus them mentality, it's going to separate groups further. So if your messaging is going to ever say, we don't want to be like those people, we want to, work on things that make the climate better, you're actually going to separate everybody that is in that them category further away from your messaging. You're also going to separate your people that do like your message further away from the people that your message is not reaching. There's this cool table it's a list of what works for changing behavior or what doesn't work when changing behavior. If people are going to have a call to action or they're trying to, influence a group of people to do something, you could reference this table and look at, am I stacking this call to action, stacking the deck in the way to where it's likely to work, or am I stacking the deck in a way to where it might not work? I try to make sure, for example, like never put things in an us versus them mentality because it's not going to achieve my long-term goals. That was something I learned from there. There's some other things in here though. So they look at whether or not it's like language-based interventions or if it's like signage that you're putting out there, if it's technology-based things. And the cool thing is you don't have to read the research article. You can just skim to the tables and you are going to understand exactly what's going on. They call them evidence-based kernels. So the idea is that what is the bare minimum amount of things that I need to do to get the behavior change? So the cool thing is they were like, hey, we're going to strip all the fluff out of all these procedures. What actually works? Let's communicate that. So it's at least a resource where people can go kind of look at real quick.
No, I just want to jump in with an anecdote. Is that I find that framing things in the form of collaboration tend to be far more effective as far as getting people on board or even getting people like to open their mind a little bit versus the us versus them or you versus somebody else. And I find just personally with me, it's like if somebody approaches me with the exact same like solution or issue or concept, but framed in a like, hey, this is sort of a way that you can get involved, or this is that collaborative nature of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It gets me a little more fired up to be like, oh, this is something I can like get involved with versus, hey, this is a problem and you might be on the right side, but these guys are the enemies. I feel like that's almost overplayed. And I'm just like, it kind of turns me off a little bit to the idea.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that's not just my own viewpoint. That's an evidence-based thing.
For sure. And it transcends cultures, borders, etc. too. So one that's right below this to give a positive example that kind of ties this together too is you can use like graphic maps or like node maps. And the idea is just any graphic organizer that has goal-based behavior. And typically it's guided by someone that has status. So if you think about somebody that is trying to say like, here's how I successfully developed my company, or here's how I successfully changed my community. You can get more goal completion and more compliance, that is like follow through on doing things by simply just providing the graphic organizer. So, maybe your piece of media comes along with a kit that also includes some of these sort of things in your call to action. Just to reiterate, you don't have to read the article. I promise you, you can just read the tables because it's a 39-page article and you don't have to read the 39 pages.
I just want to have one closing thought on that, which is, taking small changes, is that I think a lot of people don't realize the power they have on a local level. I'm a huge advocate of this, and you can go back and watch the first episode of this podcast to kind of hear more of what I'm doing there. But I've had a very eye-opening couple of years seeing the power of like advocating things to your local city council or your local mayor, or planning and zoning. Those are all public forums that are open. And if you have an idea for better bus routes or expanding a train network or something like that you personally would benefit from, but is also good climate wise or environmental wise, like going and talking in front of city council, like that can sometimes have a really huge effect because a lot of times these elected officials just don't understand the problem. They're busy, they're politicians, they're not scientists, or a lot of times they don't even live in the area that you might be advocating for. So I think that could be a really good place to sort of start and explore whenever it comes to taking small steps that are within your control, but they can sometimes add to a larger sort of amplifying effect if you get in front of the right people.
I love that. A base assumption in our field is that we always say the learner is always right, meaning that like what they're doing in the environment currently is just a byproduct of the environment and how it's arranged. Like pointing a finger at a politician isn't going to solve the problem. And they're really just doing what the environment's arranged for. So like what you're saying there is you inserting yourself into that, being a part of their environment will potentially alter the outcomes. It's always been a fun thing that I try to remind myself of, like, if I'm upset about a situation, blaming somebody is going to get me nowhere. Figuring out how to insert something little that will have a potential for change is the best thing I can do in the moment. Coincidentally, you're not really getting into that us versus them downfall, hopefully, too.